Come in, welcome. What's that? No, you haven't missed anything. They're just about to start. Buffalo sports, of course. Everything. Bills, Sabres, Buttes, No, it's not very... Well, they certainly think they're funny. Listen, let me pour you a drink. Have a seat and lend an ear. You'll hear tales of sorrow and despair, endless droughts and infamous tanks, and things Mike doesn't like. Please, join us.
Before we begin, shout out to Space, as always.
It's really fascinating.
Welcome back, 716 Sports Podcast. Sorry that you missed us last week. We got together, but we decided the quality wasn't good enough.
I broke it.
No, you were fine.
I totally messed it up.
You're a good boy. We didn't do our usual mic check, and I was thinking maybe we could do a live mic check for the people, but then I was like, yeah, it's kind of just...
Overkill.
It's dumb, so... here we are again. How was your Friendsgiving?
It was good, man.
Good?
I made my first turkey, and it was delicious.
You baked it or fried it?
I baked it.
Baked it in the oven?
Mm-hmm.
Do you bake a turkey? I don't think that's the
You
right
roast
way.
it.
Roast it. Did you have a big pan?
I had a big old pan.
Did you go bag?
Huh?
Did you go bag?
Bag.
No.
No. Okay, interesting.
That's all the trend these days.
And we did the bag. Would you do any rub or anything, or
Oh, I made my own. I made my own butter.
made your own butter?
You want to get in the turkey?
I thought that was a churn I saw out there in the kitchen.
So I didn't actually make the butter,
Oh, okay.
but I took about four big sticks, and I put in some salt, pepper, a bunch of lemon zest,
Yep.
1 lemon juice.
How good is citrus fruit? Just as a category.
It's pretty great.
I think it's
Lemon, orange, tangerine, grapefruit,
Lime is
lime.
criminally underrated in that
Get in
category.
here. Get in here, citrus. Let's talk.
lemon
Hang on.
zest,
Yeah.
lemon juice.
Uh-huh.
Then I ground garlic cloves,
Okay.
four of them.
So fresh.
Oh,
You didn't get
damn.
the...
Olive oil
Okay.
and parsley.
Yeah.
Mix it all together and just really rubbing it under
Rub it
the
in.
skin.
Yep.
Both
You gotta
sides,
get under the
top
skin.
and bottom
That's
under
key.
the skin, and then I
Yep.
put a big ball of it inside the butt.
Yeah.
And then I put orange, apple, lemon, onion, celery, thyme, parsley, rosemary, and sage all inside of the turkey.
I'm down with everything but celery. But I could probably, with that much flavor, I could probably...
Yeah, at
forget.
that point, it's
celery is
acceptable.
very overpowering, but so is
And then in
lemon.
the
So, I
bottom-
feel like they just, neutralize.
In the bottom of the pan, I put in a bunch of that same butter and all those same fruits, and it just roasted.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm out of here. I got to go eat dinner now.
It was really nice. You trying to rip
Do you have any leftovers?
I do.
All right, I may
I got a
grab a
whole
piece
bunch.
here when we walk out. That sounds good. And then, of course, stovetop stuffing and boxed mashed potatoes, and then that was it, right?
We did have stovetop stuffing.
There's nothing wrong with stovetop.
'Cause I hate
But you
making
did your
stuffing.
own potatoes, right?
No, we didn't actually have any potatoes.
You didn't do any potatoes?
No one brought any. Because we were doing the turkey. We had the cranberry.
Mm-hmm.
We provided the turkey, the cranberry, corn on the cob,
Yeah.
and the venue.
Okay.
Nobody else brought mashed potatoes. People were supposed to bring dishes. Some brought chili. Some brought some casserole. No one bought potatoes.
Interesting.
And I feel bad for not getting here till later and not bringing potatoes because there's about 5 pounds of potatoes in my house right now. Love potatoes.
That sounds pretty good. Good job, man.
It was successful.
Well done.
Thanks.
My mother-in-law put literally no seasoning on the turkey, and it was fine. But then your boy came in the last 40 minutes. I made the stuffing. I made the gravy. Cooked the biscuits. Came in. I'm the closer. That's what my role
The
is.
John
I don't do
Rocker of
anything
Thanksgiving.
until about noon. We actually had an early lunch. We had it at 12:30. I was down at my in-laws, and my wife's grandfather, who's a man of routine, came over. So we had a big lunch at 12:30. It's probably the earliest I've ever had it.
This is my first time I ever made turkey. I was super stressed out about it. And it turned out amazing. It was
Now,
super
have you done
moist.
ham or roast beef in the past?
No.
No, you just
No.
Went right for it.
Incredibly moist.
Chinese
What
food?
is it, like 20 minutes per pound?
15 minutes per pound. I didn't even touch it. I didn't base it a single time. Didn't open the oven. Just 5 hours. Check the
Just let it
temperature.
go.
It was done.
Yeah.
All right.
Good job.
There you go.
That's enough.
Nobody
Turkey.
got salmonella?
Not
I
yet.
haven't got any text yet.
I think at this point the incubation period is over, so
we're
I think
good.
you're in the clear.
Made it.
Very
We out
good.
here. The most exciting moment, and not to steal the thunder from your turkey, the most exciting moment of Justin's Friendsgiving was turning the overtime of the Sabres game on as a group of 9 people watching a hockey game and watching Sam Reinhart go bar down on a backhand.
How many
The
people
Sabres-
you say?
9?
Hey.
I think there were, we had 9.
Synergy.
More came later, actually.
Really?
After you left.
Oh, man. Yeah, there were 9 of us watching what turned out to be the 9th consecutive Sabres victory.
Look at
It was
that.
stressful to watch, too.
It was stressful to watch. The whole overtime, you're waiting for something to bounce back the other way. And I know Detroit is not a powerhouse in the league these days, but you're like, something's got to break at some point. It's,
They're doing this in every which way. They're beating good teams. They're beating bad teams. They're winning both ends to a back-to-back. They're finally coming from ahead and winning a game this time.
that felt great. Just watching that
Instead
game.
of coming from behind every single time. And God damn it, are they not doing this basically every time with 1 goal? Like that goal differential, it's not going up quickly. It's not going up quickly. You look at all the other
Not going up at
contenders,
all.
and they're right there. In terms of, they're still not, they're not even, but they're only a plus 10 now. Whereas some of these other teams, they're doing stuff a little more sustainable. Tampa, who just, because of the game yesterday, passed the Sabres and are now in first place in the Atlantic. They're at a plus 24.
And that's a
Toronto's at
plus 10,
22.
including that Ottawa home game.
Right. Which also includes like the Colorado game. I mean, things have leveled off a little bit in terms of they had some really weird scores. Like in October, I don't know if they had a 1-goal game either way.
It
I
took
don't
quite a
think they
while.
did for a while.
It took
So-
quite a while for them to have a 1-goal game.
Things are kind of regulating, and it's nice to see them all coming out. Look, is this sustainable or not? I am tending to think it may be a slight mirage. You're not going to win 9 games in a row too often, but they can't take the points away from you. And only 2 teams have ever won 16 out of their first 24 and missed the playoffs. And one of those was Montreal 2 years ago when Carey Price went out, and Carey Price was that team. I believe, I can't remember who the other one was. I think like the Islanders in the earlier part of the decade was the only other team. So we're talking about, let's not start printing the tickets yet, but this kind of success early lends itself to playoff appearances.
Yeah,
And that's
Jack
all
went
I
on the
need at
record
this point.
very early in the season and said that the last couple of years it was so difficult to find success because they dug themselves such a hole
Every
coming
time.
out at the beginning of the season. And now this year they don't have that. This season they have tasted early success and now early sustained success at that.
And they're dealing with injuries. The depth is being tested. They've had to dip down to Rochester a couple times to bring guys up, and that hasn't mattered. Everybody is still performing, and there are guys that aren't even performing at anything close to like a career best. We know the issues that Eichel has had, like at least if you're going by shooting percentage, although he seems to be taking the mantle and really going in the playmaker mode now more than ever. Reinhart still is not quite where people thought he would be, I think. Wrist the line, and I'm not sure if he's 100% or, able to get things moving, at least on the offensive end, although we know what the advanced statistics say about him on the defensive side. They love him there. So, his plus minus may suck, but pay no attention to that. There's a lot going on with this team right now, and this is legit in what I think is the toughest division in hockey, too. I think you have really good teams, top to bottom. Both of the wild cards right now would be coming out of the Atlantic. You got, right now, as it stands, Monday the 26th in the evening, Tampa, Buffalo, and Toronto are all 1, 2, 3. And then right down there again in the 2 wild card spots are Boston and Montreal. Are Detroit, Ottawa, and Florida trash? Yeah, they're pretty bad. But those 5 teams, I would take those 5 teams against the top 5 teams in any other division. in
The
hockey.
Atlantic has become what the Metro was for so many
Right.
years earlier
Yeah.
on when they realigned the divisions. The Metro used to have those 5 teams. It was Washington, Philly, Pittsburgh, the Rangers, and pick one else of New Jersey or Columbus. And now with Pittsburgh and Philly really falling off, New Jersey's struggling. Now got the Islanders in 3rd place in that division. I don't think the Islanders are all that good.
No.
Columbus is okay. Carolina's had something, but the Atlantic is clearly the dominant division.
Capitals and Blue Jackets, and you can flip a coin on whoever's going to get that 3rd spot. I mean, the Rangers kind of bubbled up and then have failed a little bit here, faltered a little bit recently. The Islanders were leading the division for at least the first month, and they were kind of flip-flopping in Carolina. Now they've fallen off. You would think that Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, and we saw the GM getting axed there in Philly today.
It's going to get worse in Philadelphia before it gets better at this point.
So it just, to me, Washington, Columbus, absolutely. Everybody else, I take a hard pass on. So I think this is a real thing. I think there's 7 good teams right now in the Eastern Conference, period, and I think the Sabres are one of those 7. And that's a great position to be in at this point.
And you almost clamor for the old playoff seeding because you're going to end up with a much worse matchup. Like right now, today, they would play Toronto.
Right.
And realistically, as the second, they're going to be second in the conference in points, probably third by old seeding because Washington would have drawn the 2 seed. But playing a team like the Islanders feels so much better than playing Toronto.
Well, if you went by the old one, the 6 divisions that we used to have, it would actually be Tampa right now would be the 1. Mm-hmm. Buffalo would be tied with Toronto in the Northeast for the 2. And then the Atlantic lead would actually be, I think it would be the Islanders right now. So, yeah, it would be the Islanders. So things have really changed significantly because of, Columbus would have been back out in the West. So, yeah, and it's not going back to that, but certainly if you put the conference 1 through 8, it would be much more advantageous because you would be drawing, like the Bruins or the Canadiens or the Blue Jackets rather than, a potential matchup with either the Leafs or the Lightning. It's going to suck to finish second and third in this division this year because you're going to get a monster matchup.
Yeah. Before we move on to talk about what's upcoming here for the Sabres, I was at the game this past Wednesday on Thanksgiving Eve, and that was the best it has felt to be in that building in I can't even tell you how long. Like, that was the best hockey game to be at as a Sabres fan since probably 2008, 2009.
First period, incredible.
And the success on the ice was incredible and how that came out, but it wasn't just that. It was being in a sold-out crowd full of loud, happy Sabres fans. And we beat this to death on the podcast over the last couple of years. You go to a Sabres game, it doesn't matter if they're doing well, they're doing poorly. It's like basically going to a library and having a discussion about a hockey game while professional athletes skate in front of you. Nobody's into it. There were so many organically started Let's Go Buffalo chants. There was so much noise. Everyone was into everything. It just felt like, I know it's, you don't need me to say it. A 9-game winning streak says it for itself, but it felt like in that building that Sabres hockey is back. It felt like what we've had and what we've been missing is back on the ice, and it's in the building, and it's everywhere around town.
Yeah, they had Jason Pominville on WGR this morning, and he was talking about the atmosphere and warm-ups, and now they're in the locker rooms like, this is going to be a crazy game, atmosphere-wise, and pretty cool to hear.
It's I was just saying, it's a holiday atmosphere, too. People are, you probably got some expats coming home as well, and yeah, it was, I was watching on TV. It was, the national broadcast on NBCSN. And it was nice to see Buffalo finally representing. Not too much orange and black in the first few rows that you see around the ice. It looked like Jeff, you said, it looked like the Sabres were actually having a home ice advantage there.
So last time we talked, Sabres going to their toughest stretch of the schedule, facing Tampa, Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, and we were saying then that we'd be happy they came out of there with 4 points, and they got all of the points. And then they came in that following week after we recorded, but didn't release, and been crushing everyone since.
The lost episodes.
The lost episodes.
Yeah. We're going to reveal that in our B-sides when we become millionaires from podcasting.
If you rewind the first track all the way back another additional hour, then you get to hear the hidden side.
Number 9. All those games, too. I mean, the Tampa game was a game where they were ahead, but badly outplayed, and the defense and goaltending kept them in it. But those other 3 games, just incredible. The Minnesota game coming down from 2-0 early on a back-to-back at Minnesota, did everything they could have done in the third period. The Pittsburgh game, I know Pittsburgh's having a down year, but you go down 4-1 at a Pittsburgh team that has been just the class of the league for the better part of the last decade. And you get 3 goals to tie that game, and Jack gets that shot to win in overtime, and just the look on his face when he scores that goal is how all of us felt inside watching it. Mm-hmm. And I know partially for him it was because he hasn't scored very much lately, and his shooting percentage is bizarrely low for someone of his quality. but just that feeling of just excitement. We don't even know what to do with ourselves at this point. I don't think we had a lot of crazy predictions before the season started about performance and wild cards and points per game of players, but I don't think there's a single one of us that would have sat down and picked this team to win these 9 games or even those 4 games last week consecutively.
No, I don't think it's realistic to at any point really assume that you're going to be able to pull that off, but they're able to, and then whatever, I don't know, momentum, whatever you want to call it, keep carrying it over into those 2 home games against Philadelphia, which is really the only non-1 goal game in this entire stretch that they've been on here. You know, Montreal looked like maybe it was, you know, a couple bad bounces. I mean, you go back to back, first at home, then on the road, division rivals, beat them in overtime both times. There's something special going on with this, right? It just feels different this year, and it feels to me I can rely on the goaltender and not have to make excuses and not have to look at the stats. It just feels like whenever you need a big save, whenever there's going to be that breakdown on the defensive side, which still happens more frequently than we like, Carter Hutton's been there to make that big save, change that.
And
momentum.
Ullmark too on
Ullmark
Saturday.
as well. Yeah, no, Ullmark as
He
well.
was insane to that shootout.
Yeah.
He made
He was
some really
great.
great saves. But it's nice to see in this past week of this last week of games, you're seeing a lot of other players come out, like Tage Thompson speaking out saying, "Hey, I
Man,
can play in this league."
You know, we ragged on a lot of their decisions about keeping Tage Thompson up, and I credit where credit's due to Botterill and Housley. I think that they were spot on with how they've handled Tage Thompson, and I guess he just needed a little bit more time because this last week and a half especially, he has started to show something special.
That one-timer, my God.
It's unbelievable.
Rifle.
He's got a lot of skill. He's a big guy with a lot of skills. He's really soft hands, and the way he skates such a big guy, he makes us look so effortless.
Yeah, he's
But,
a great skater, great puck handling for someone of his size and length. And as Bill mentioned, just an absolute cannon of a shot when he gets a chance to let it go.
He kind of and obviously different positions, and I get it, but he isn't quite Tyler Myers' height. But when you saw Myers young and during his Calder season, you're like, how is a kid this young that's still probably almost growing into that body able to move and handle himself on the ice like that? And Thompson is a little bit rougher, but you can see that potential there with him, and obviously he's got a bit of a mean side as well. I
Like
would
a
say,
gazelle.
yeah.
Little baby deer taking his first steps on the ice.
He struggled early on, but he was struggling playing his game. You know, let him mess up doing what he does and learn when to do what he does. You know what I mean? Pick those spots better. So I like the way they've handled it so far. People just got to be patient.
Yeah, and I didn't like the way they were handling it for the first month. It seemed like, well,
It was confusing.
you got to get this guy out here. Like, there are guys that you would think he has much higher potential than what you're throwing out there with some of these veterans that don't necessarily provide you with a ton of spark on either side.
So not only him, Sabaka, I'm pretty critical of the season, has been playing pretty well. Like, not in the stat sheet, but he's playing
Yeah.
well.
I think
in other
he's going to be
areas.
a solid bottom 6 guy. The issue is, do you think that he's going to really provide more than Gergensons and Larson and those kind of guys do? That's a different discussion. But I think he's played well in his role. He had a couple very solid defensive plays late in the Tampa game in that role. He's kind of taken up the mantle a little bit from Larson in terms of the guy you find out there in tough defensive matchups when you just need a guy at center to try to kill some time.
Well, you know what's changed on this team now is it used to be, boy, I sure hope that fill in the blank, like, boy, it would be nice if Justin Bailey could show that consistently, right? Mm-hmm. Or Evan Rodriguez or any of these guys that seem to be constantly hopping between Rochester and Buffalo, guys that could seemingly fit in basically anywhere but the top line because the talent level wasn't quite what it is today. Now it's, what are you doing right now? Because this needs to keep going, and if you're not producing, we can't have you going right now.
And right now, there's about 15 guys that are worthy of the 12 forward slots
Right,
on the team.
it's great to see the level and the balance and the level, the compete level that they're showing at this point.
And Johan Larson had a bit of a coming out party at that Flyers game.
Your boy,
An assist away from a Gordie Howe hat trick. He had
The
that goal.
building, by the way, was just everyone was loving every second of that. First of all, that's the best shot I've ever seen Johan Larsson take in his entire career.
rip.
Absolutely, just chased poor Alex Lyon, who probably had no business being out there to begin with that night.
Yeah,
had absolutely no chance.
I felt first
I
start.
felt bad for that guy.
4 goals in the first period. You
Been
get
the hottest
like,
team in the
wasn't
league.
getting any
that
help.
sucks, man. Like, no, he was not. He was getting left out. I mean,
Absolutely out to dry.
the Flyers
Thompson
are a
got to walk in
complete
on him.
disaster.
It's terrible.
Yeah, they're
doing out there
really
with that
bad right now.
But when he dropped the gloves immediately, every single person, just like in the lower bowl, just everyone standing, cheering. And when he dropped, I think it was Lawton he was fighting. He dropped Lawton. Everyone was like, that's the loudest I've heard the building for a Sabres game in years.
Him and Gertz have been playing really well together lately. And this streak specifically, they've been playing a lot against the other team's top lines. So they've really honed their game. I think we all started the season being pretty critical of them.
I think that we've been so starved for talent on this hockey team that every time a player gets taken in the first round especially, or brought up to be part of the team, we want them to be a top 3 forward or a top pair defenseman. It is okay if Zemgus Girgensons is a third-line winger, as long as you're paying him like a third-line winger. It's okay if Johan Larsson is a third- or fourth-line center, because he's good at some things that a third or fourth line center do. If Rasmus Ristolainen turns out to not be a top pair defenseman, I think that's okay too. If you got Dahlin and Gouli and guys like that, not everyone has to be the best player on the team. If guys are playing a role and playing it well, that's okay.
Exactly.
But this is the first time in how many years where people have slotted it in properly. You have first line players, you have actual first line players, you have actual second line players that, if needed, could pop up to the first line. You have defined bottom 6 forwards. You have solid defensive pairings appropriate for where they are, whether it's first, second, or third pair. It's been years since this has happened.
Yeah, I
absolutely
actually
part
just
of it.
want to get to that. Like, these guys are probably where they are supposed to be right now, as opposed to when they first came in here.
Yeah.
They're expected to be like top players in the team. Like, Zemgus Girgensons was one of Ted Nolan's best players, you know. But now this is where he should be. He should be in a fourth, checking like a very solid defensive fourth line. And Larson as well. He came in here traded for Pominville, part of that big trade, and they came in. Oh, he's the bull. You know, this, that, and the other thing. And like he's not a goal scorer. He's just a shutdown defensive. He's not a sexy player, quote unquote. This is what he does, and he's doing it now. Him and Gergensons are really shining together right now.
The roles have been so much better defined on this team for the first time in this decade. Like, it's been a while since we've seen everybody kind of have their role. I would say maybe since like the division title year 8 years ago. So yeah, or 9 years ago now. So this is something new that we're experiencing.
The Sabres Facebook just reposted the video of Jack scoring that overtime goal in Pittsburgh, and I'm watching it again, getting all hyped up again.
Fired up.
So we do have a chance on the podcast here today to talk to another player who wore the captain's C in the great history of Buffalo sports. But before we get a chance to talk to Mike Peca, let's take a quick look at what the Sabres have upcoming here before we're back here with you next week. So we are recording here on a Monday night. By the time you guys get this podcast here on Tuesday, it will be Sabres game day, and they are hosting the San Jose Sharks. Now, that is another one of those games that you kind of lump in with the Minnesota and the Winnipeg game as a tough cross-conference matchup. San Jose handled Buffalo very easily in their first meeting this season. It does feel like an entirely new Buffalo team since then, not in terms of personnel, but in terms of mindset, attitude, and how well they're playing. I don't know that I doubt them against anyone in the league right now, but certainly a very difficult matchup. They then travel later this week. They have that dreaded Florida back-to-back that always has, in the past few years, just been an absolute saber killer at Tampa and at Florida Thursday and Friday. A Tampa team that I think we were very lucky to get 2 points in regulation when they came here a couple weeks ago. So a couple interesting matchups here in San Jose and Tampa. A chance for Buffalo to jockey for position with the Tampa Bay team that they're trying to keep pace with when they head down to Florida here this week.
Look, is it likely that they're going to continue to win all three of these games? I wouldn't say it's likely, but you got massive tests. Tampa's going to have your full attention. I would assume that the Lightning are going to be going full bore, no backups necessary. The Florida swing has always been a little bit of a challenge for everybody. It's tough to play back to back, and when you play those teams back to back, like the Sabres have to do, another stretch of 3 and 4 that can be difficult. Let's see what happens with the San Jose game. Awful, I think a little bit of a break, just 2-night break. But really, the big test to me is that Tampa game on Thursday. Western Conference foes, as challenging as they can be, it's kind of free points in a way. The Tampa game on Thursday is the one I'm really looking forward to.
And then they will be back here at home while we are recording next Monday. They'll be at Nashville next Monday for a game at the Predators, and then they are back home next Tuesday as we finally get a little taste of the Buffalo-Toronto season series.
That is a tough back-to-back stretch.
That is
right
miserable.
Yeah.
You're on the
At
road in
Nashville,
Nashville,
home Toronto.
and then coming home to play the other best team in the
But,
NHL.
they've been handling those back-to-backs so well. I know maybe this is the highest quality of opponents in those two games combined, but again, the coaching staff and this team just seem to be in the right mindset for that. I mean, back-to-back games against Winnipeg and Minnesota, no problem. Back-to-back games this past weekend. I know, again, Detroit's not Toronto, but that's tough. Back-to-back.
That's
at
still
Detroit.
2 NHL games back to back.
Second game of that back-to-back is always the more challenging.
Two of the best teams in the league, back-to-back.
Yep.
And you're in Nashville the day before.
And I feel like we're almost going to the same script. By next Tuesday, we're going to have another good look at what this team really is, because this is a 5-game stretch where, these are games that good teams, they don't win all of them, but good teams win 75% of them.
We could possibly see Austin Matthews back by this game, too.
It will be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how many blue jerseys are down in the 100 level. I know there's always a bunch.
know.
Hopefully it's a very loud... I should actually say, I wonder how many lighter blue jerseys there will be in the 100 level, because both teams do own blue jerseys.
Valid point.
Do you think they go Hutton and Nashville? I mean, if they go Allmark and Nashville, Hutton against Toronto?
If you're going to split, that's how I'd do it. It's tough, though.
Just keep trying to win.
Yeah, I like that. It's
What-
a
like-
good thought.
Just
I
keep
can't-
going
can't wait
until
to be
you
talking
lose,
about
and then
that-
I can talk about
That
it.
12-game winning streak going in the next Monday. Knock
That
on wood.
would be incredible. And if you're going into Nashville on a 12-game winning streak, that would really be something. But you never know.
So we will see. Go Sabres.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's just great to have good hockey to talk about. Like, we haven't had good hockey to talk about since we started this podcast.
So, the Sabres are not the only successful team in Buffalo right now. There's Buffalo Buttes. And there's also the 15U Buffalo Jr Sabres.
Nationally ranked.
Nationally ranked number 5. Just been undefeated in state qualifiers.
Yeah, so
Ran
like
through-
16 or 17 consecutive wins now.
Ran through a trip to California. Just ran through all those teams. And so we got Mike Peca on here to talk a bit about his team.
Former Buffalo Sabres captain, who also has a big hand in coaching that team, took some time to talk about his time coaching that 15U team, what it was like being a captain here, and where he sees this Sabres team compared to his teams.
So the Buffalo Sabres are not the only successful team in Buffalo at the 9-game winning streak. We're joined here now by head coach of the Buffalo Jr 15 and under head coach, Michael Peca. Thanks for calling in today, Mike.
Hey, my pleasure. How you guys doing today?
Pretty well, you?
Excellent.
So, you got a pretty good hockey team over there at Harbor Center, 27-2-1. Just tell us a bit about your season and what some of your successes come from.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of success with our team really starts as an organizational mindset and philosophy where, I think right from day one of training camp in August, we've created an environment downtown at Harbor Center with the Junior Sabres program that, we're committed to developing kids and building good habits on and off the ice. And if we can commit to doing those things and getting good at those, then the things we'll teach about the game on the ice are only going to, give them the best chance of retaining that information. And, right from day one of training camp, that 15U group was amazing. It's a talented group of players, and I think any time to be successful, at least right away early in the season, talent does help, but we've got a tremendous amount of character and leadership on that team. And, one thing that I remember being on a 15U team when I was that age, my team out of Toronto, we were And this is no exaggeration. We were the best 15U team in the world. Like, there was people who held tournaments, and they invited our team, and we went and beat everybody. And I never thought we were the most talented team, but the one thing that we had that our coach said was that we cared more about each other off the ice than we did on the ice. And that's something that this group has, that they're a close group. They love each other. They hold each other accountable. Their growth and maturity is on full display each and every time we touch the ice, and every time they get in the gym, and every time we're in the video room. So when you have a group of kids that are that committed and that eager to learn, it makes life as a coaching staff so much easier and so much more enjoyable to be around them.
Do you as a coach create that atmosphere? And if so, how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, I think it's important to do that as a coach for really any team at any level. I mean, you've heard, even Coach Housley and Jason Bottrell talk about, a culture change within the pro team, and culture is everything. And I think that's set right from the top with Kevin Adams and Charlie Mendola and Matty Ellis out of the academy and Junior Sabres hierarchy. And we've got a tremendous coaching staff throughout our organization, I think, with great experience, where knowing how to create it is important. And I think number one is, in my experience, is the best way to get the kids to buy in is to give them ownership. So I believe in giving full autonomy to the kids. And, so we're not an overly structured team system wise. When it comes to power play and different things, we ask for their input. What would they like to do? What would they like to run? Because if you feel like they're in on the decision-making process, because they're 51 on 16, so they're old enough to start having some say in what they do, and not carte blanche say, but enough where they feel ownership and take ownership of it. Because the one thing I told them right off the start is, this isn't my team. It's not the other coach's team. It's their team, and they're only going to be as successful as they want to be. And that means that they've got to be comfortable in the locker room, on the bench, holding each other accountable to what their value system is. And we had an exercise early in the season in the video room where we had them identify, players and teams in their mind, when we did it in small groups, that they felt were players that they'd want on their team, or a style of play that they'd want to run if they wanted to win a Stanley Cup. So we came up with about 7, 8, or 9 words that became our value system. Those are the terms, those are the principles that we've identified that are going to make our team successful. So now that was given on to them to hold each other accountable to those. And the other thing about holding each other accountable is, what we've taught them is, if they can't hold themselves accountable first, then they're not in a position to hold others accountable. So that, and when I talk about that maturity level growing, it just, to hear them take ownership and start coaching each other and helping each other and practicing on the bench in between periods, I'm not surprised to see the level of success we've had, because they have, let's repeat the term again, taken ownership of their team.
So what's it like coaching a team so young at such a high level? Is it difficult in the aspect of keeping the team, because this kind of age where it's still by having fun, once again as a kid having fun, but how do you maintain a balance of having fun yet focus on maintaining success, as you're currently ranked number 5 in the nation? Is it that difficult to maintain?
It's, what I mean, it's an ongoing exercise. I think that's part of the fun with me as a coach is, they've got a guy who's just there, and not just me, but Coach Lesikowski, Coach Dan Collins. We're there for the kids. I've got no aspirations of going on and coaching anywhere. I'm here because the youth hockey gave me so much in my life. Being a part of a small group that created the Junior Sabres program means a great deal to me, and now to get to be a part of it, without my son being involved in the program right now is really neat, because I know that I can offer these kids a great deal as their head coach, and the guys that I brought on as assistant coaches, I know that they can offer a great deal to these kids. And a lot of it's through our experiences. I mean, it's, we do coach, we teach more, and my thing is, I try and mentor more, and I try to, get them into a position, like I mentioned from the outset, is just be good young men, learn how to develop good work habits, and then everything else will just kind of fall into place, because they've all got, a boatload of talent. and they don't want to waste that. So I think with any coach at any level, the hardest thing to do is manage success. So with a young group, it's easy to get a little ahead of themselves and they start thinking they're really good. But we've had little pockets within games, where we've kind of let our game go, and it's good to always go back and the following week in our video session and identify those things where we've allowed ourselves to slip. But they're getting better at all that. I mean, they practice real hard and they have fun in practice. And we got to. For me, I know the most important thing I learned as a kid in youth hockey was if it's not fun, I'm not going to want to go. And if I don't want to go and I'm there, I'm just going to be miserable. So we make sure that we have a lot of fun and we create incentive things where if they win or accomplish a certain goal, they'll get a captain's practice and instead of a regular practice where the captains get to decide what we do that night. So, I mean, we incorporate a lot of different things to incentivize success and having fun and keeping it pretty lighthearted because at this level with the success of these kids and our team, it's the parents that are putting all the pressure on them, unfortunately, in a lot of areas. And social media creates a lot of pressure with what their peers are doing and what they're getting opportunity-wise that they are hoping to get, which a lot of them will get. So it's just managing expectations and just having them focus on, being in the present, focus on your development and all that stuff. And good things will happen. And it's been a blessing so far.
Yeah, I was actually able to see some of that positive attitude today. I skated briefly I played goalie as a target for some of your defensemen today. And just saw some of the coaching, and it was a very positive attitude. Just a player flipped the puck and was like, "Don't worry, just get up, do it again." And just, I liked that. That was pretty cool. I've been on a lot of hockey teams, and I never really got that in practice. But I really enjoyed that positive attitude. It's pretty cool to see.
Well, that's good to hear.
But this is probably around the age where you can start seeing when some of these kids have the tools to probably make it pretty far. When you see that, what do you tell one of those players, and what kind of advice do you give their parents at the same time?
The first thing with the parents is I just try and get them to just be patient and enjoy the process. Things will happen at the time and place that they're meant to happen. You can't rush anything. I try and tell them that look, you've got a coaching staff and an organization because it's not just me; it's an entire organization that's invested on getting these kids to the next level. And Kevin Adams and his staff does an amazing job. And then it's just about, look, the biggest thing is some of the parents wonder when they got to start getting an advisor, and I'll help them through that process and actually take on some of that role to begin with. With the players, I just try and keep focused on the present. We go to enough big showcases, and I've talked to, junior scouts and college scouts and a whole bunch of different stuff that, I'll talk to them about certain players, and I don't talk to the players about it. I'll talk to the parents and just have them keep it quiet for now because, I just want the kids to focus on continuing to get better and playing well. So, they're still young. I mean, you can identify kids that are going to be successful in the game, and I don't really look at it from a skill set because I've played against, coached, seen all kinds of skill that has gone nowhere because you can just tell that they didn't have the right mind for the game or the true heart for the game, that they weren't going to be able to battle through adversity. So if I can just instill a true passionate love for the game, because adversity is going to come in many different forms many times. So the more they love the game, the easier it is going to be to persevere through that adversity. So I just focus on the little things, getting them ready for what's going to be laying ahead, because the game can be cruel, the game can be great, and you've got to be, strong enough mentally to withstand it.
Transitioning for a moment to a different time in your hockey career, I think there's a lot of Sabres fans, myself included, who, when we think about wearing the captain's C, the first person that comes to mind is you. Talking still maybe about leadership, what was it like to have that role in your professional hockey career, and what maybe came with it that you didn't expect when you accepted the captain's role?
Well, I think it's always an honor. I've always been a pretty humble guy and a pretty quiet guy. So, to be named captain, when Lindy was first year head coach was a great honor. I think I always tried to be a leader. I never thought having a letter on my jersey was something I needed or something that would change anything that I did or said. Because because even when I was a captain or even when I've coached, I've told everybody in that locker room, regardless of how young they are, how old they are, this team belongs to all of them, and they've all got to assume a leadership role. So I think one of the things I think that I think I did well as a captain is I still I wasn't a rah guy. I wasn't in your face or challenge guy. I was very mild mannered, and I talked to guys, and I really took on more of a, it's hard to, not father figure role, but more of a mentor role or counselor role if guys were struggling or doing certain things. And I always tried to adopt the type of personality my grandfather had, where he didn't say a whole lot, but when he said something, you knew it had a lot of meaning, so people were going to listen to it. And as a captain in the locker room, I was that guy where I didn't say a whole lot regarding different things, but if I felt something needed to be said at certain points, I would say it, because we did have other leaders in the room that kind of carried the water in those other areas. And not a lot surprised me or I found very difficult with being a captain. I knew that when the crap hit the fan, that your face was the first one the camera was going to come in front of for a comment or a statement when things went on. There was nothing I didn't enjoy about being the captain. I didn't feel extra weight of responsibility. And I think part of that is I got great advice from Pat LaFontaine. We're dear friends, and right as he left, and he goes, "Look, you're going to be the next captain here, and just realize you don't have to solve everybody's problem. You just got to be yourself." There's one thing I even learned from a young age is, you're not a captain because you have a letter on your jersey. You're a captain because you command the respect of the players in the locker room. And I think players who have been in locker rooms where guys have had to see on their jersey, they're not the real leaders of that hockey team. And I've seen it a lot because they don't command the respect of the locker room. There might be a different player in there that may have an A or may not even have a letter that commands that respect. And those are the captains in true form. So I always believe that the letter was an honor to have on the jersey, but didn't exactly kind of lay out exactly what it entailed.
Now, given your experience being an NHL captain, what kind of advice do you give your leadership team on your 15 U hockey team? What kind of advice do you give them to be captains?
Well, all we tell these kids at this age is just they've got to lead by example. So, being a leader, especially at a young age, is, like I said, this team belongs to all of them. So, they all know that they have not just the right, but the obligation to speak up when they feel something needs to be done. But I think the important thing that we identified in the kids that wear letters on our team is those are the kids we feel that play the game the right way. And I know that's kind of an overused term in hockey these days, but they show up and they always have great attitudes, and they're always practicing real hard. They're the kids that are always going that extra mile. And that's hard to say because, we've got 20 kids on our team and all of them are really close to that. But the kids that are our captains, I think just exemplified even more. They just seem willing to go through the wall for their team. And those are the guys that you can tell, which is why I ultimately decided to pick these kids as our captains and assistant captains. You can just tell that they commanded the respect of the players on the team. They knew that they're the hardworking crew. They knew that they're the bloodline of our hockey team, and it's worked well so far.
Taking a look now at the Sabres team that so many hockey fans in Buffalo are glued to, and it's become must-watch hockey again. Having been a member of some very successful Sabres teams in your time here, do you see a lot of parallels? Do you think that this is a team that is on the path or has the tools to achieve the level of success that your teams did?
I don't think there's any reason that they couldn't. Obviously as the season goes on, everybody's going to start talking about lack of playoff experience, and I don't really subscribe to that. We've seen teams year after year after year, much like this team that's young and full of talent and full of confidence. If they can sustain this, at least to some extent throughout the season, can be a very, very dangerous opponent come playoff time. But I think there's some differences. I think the style wise we were a little bit different. we were a team of like a lot of second line guys. When we were really good in Buffalo, we had some guys, that were putting up decent numbers. But I think for the most part, we were a lot of hardworking guys with, a solid blue line and a world-class goaltender in Dominic Hasek. And I think we knew what we were, and we played really well to what we were. And I think this team's got a lot more talent up front, and I think they found some great chemistry with, a couple lines, and hopefully they can ride that for as long as they can. And obviously staying healthy is going to be a big part of that. And and make no mistake, I know everybody's excited, and I know everybody also knows that they're going to hit a point of adversity in this season. So, I'm not surprised with how well they're doing. I'm looking more forward to how they deal with the first little bit of adversity they face. Because even at the start of the season, I don't think there was much. They'll face them at some point, and how they pull themselves through that, I think, will dictate more how they can finish the season and possibly how they can perform in the playoffs.
Jason Botterill, recent hire by the Sabres a couple seasons ago. So the Sabres are trending upward, and the Penguins are trending downward. Do you think Botterill leaving them coming here, do you think those are symbiotic? Do you think those relate?
It's hard to say because I don't know the inner workings of the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. I know Jason had a big influence on the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton minor league team and some of the player personnel stuff and stuff going on with that organization. So, listen, anytime an organization misses or loses a key contributor to what their success meant, it's going to have an effect. Pittsburgh's still a very, very talented team, and I think they've dealt with some injuries and some other things going on. I think it's more of a case of attrition where, you've seen it with LA, you've seen it with Chicago, you've seen these teams that have been perennial favorites for so long just kind of take a step back. And I think that's because a lot of teams are getting very talented, and they're a lot younger and faster. And I think just it's been harder for Pittsburgh to sustain that success. But I wouldn't be surprised if they finish the season strong and still find themselves in a playoff spot.
Last question. I just remember my last question I wanted to ask. So the Sabres currently on a 9-game win streak, but coming from behind often in this win streak. Do you think that's concerning at all, or just part of the makeup of the team?
No, I think the fact that it's happened and they've gotten a lot of wins in that manner, I think is only going to help them in the long run, because I think that just adds to the level of confidence that they're starting to build within their locker room and on their bench. If every game was easy, then you can make the argument that it's been exactly that. It's been easy. So they've had adversity already in small doses within some of these games and have been able to come back. So I think with a young team that's trying to build some momentum for themselves, and reshaping this new leadership group and this whole thing they got going on, I think that's only going to benefit them in the long run.
Cool. Hey, well, thanks a lot for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show.
You got it.
And
thank you.
I wish you success in the rest of your season. I hear you guys have been undefeated in your state qualifier tournament.
Yeah, we're on a pretty good run. I think we've been undefeated in the last 16 or 17 games. So hopefully we can continue that for a little while longer.
Decent at best.
That's all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you again, and have a great rest of your evening.
So thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And thanks to Mike for taking so much time and talking with us here. Always great to get his view on everything, and we wish his team continued success as they continue to try to push that winning streak up towards almost 20 games now as they climb the national rankings. We're going to go talk about the Bills and their most recent victory here in a moment. Before we do, the last time we were here with you, we did talk a little bit about the NLL-NLLPA labor dispute. It got worse for a little bit there. During our lost episode last week, the league had announced that the first 2 weeks of the season were going to be canceled, which included what was supposed to be the Buffalo Bandits home opener this upcoming Saturday, December 1st, and their first road game the following weekend. Since then, actually late last week, right after Thanksgiving, the league announced that they have reached a new agreement that will likely involve some reshuffling of the schedule, but would be set to begin mid to late December. The Bandits open practice that was originally scheduled for mid-November has now been rescheduled for this upcoming Saturday. So it remains to be seen if there will be any additional scheduling adjustments, but looks like we are going to get lacrosse back in Buffalo here sooner than later, which is good for all involved and hopefully this will be the last time we have to worry about this for a while. So, the Buffalo Bills have managed to get a quarterback benched and an offensive coordinator fired, all because of how great they were, ? But they are on a winning streak. We're going streaking. Bills beat the Jags.
That Hackett firing seems reminiscent of the Rex Ryan firing Greg Roman after his defense got torched.
Oh, it was not. I mean, that team. Oh, that team, Jacksonville. Boy, oh boy, they fall quick, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and a lot of it was just everything going right and the defense staying healthy. And I know they've dealt with some injuries, but now 7 straight losses. And this was a team that people thought were a Super Bowl contender and in a rather competitive division. A lot of people thought they were the shoo-in to be the division winner. And
they were a trendy Super Bowl pick.
They were a trendy Super Bowl pick, and they came within a quarter of being in the Super Bowl last year. I mean, think of how different history looks. If it's a Jacksonville-Philadelphia Super Bowl,
they're one early
Philly
whistle
has.
on that Miles Jack fumble return, away from probably doing it.
So very fascinating, but boy, that team is a complete disaster.
I mean, they're basically trying to win the Super Bowl the way that the Peyton Manning-led Broncos won the Super Bowl, by recognizing that they have a very aggressively average quarterback and just trying to make sure that everything else works well. What they did poorly was they not only accepted Bortles as their de facto number 1 for life, they also took away a bunch of his weapons. Allen Robinson, gone. Allen Hurns, gone. Marquise Lee, on IR before the season started. Not what you want to do when you have a quarterback who doesn't play well half the time that he has top targets, is give him Josh Allen level targets and then hope that he's going to win a Super Bowl.
With all due respect to the great D.D. Westbrook, it feels like you need a little bit more. And then Leonard Fournette, who was a top 5 draft pick as well, that they felt would enhance their running game. He's had a lot of injury issues, and those injury issues I'm going to say they will be chronic at this point. Mm-hmm. He has missed time both last year and this year, and as we will discuss a little bit later, he's going to be missing a little bit more time as well.
And then
possibly.
Definitely they announced he's suspended.
Well, they depending on appeal, but I'm going to guess that appeal is.
Yeah, we might as well just go into that right now then. So the Bills felt like they were losing that game. They went up 14-0. Jacksonville came back to tie it. Fournette was running roughshod. There's a play. Really, the defining moment of the game is that play and the 4 that follow it. Pass complete down the left sideline. Called a touchdown on the field.
What a horrible call, by the way.
Clearly down by a full yard.
Like, that was awful. Just
absolutely terrible.
Awful.
Called a touchdown on the field while the defensive back and receiver just lay there caressing the ball. A massive fight of some fairly large for NFL proportion breaks out on the left sideline that involves Leonard Fournette running off the bench to get into a fist fight with Shaq Lawson. He was not on the field for the play, which is why he's been automatically suspended for a game by the league for his involvement in the fight, in addition to him being ejected from the game, having to be separated from Lawson in the tunnel. Does seem a little short-sighted that they would walk them both down the tunnel at the same time, but that's neither here nor there for how they decided to handle that whole side of things. The Bills then proceed to absolutely stonewall Jacksonville on the goal line stand without Fournette, force them into a couple penalties, and Lambeau shanks a field goal. Bills never looked back and won the game.
Yep. It was the drive that broke this podcaster's heart wide open. A team that's been so frustrating all year. That defensive stand changed my opinion on everything, basically, because it just felt like, okay, maybe this thing is going in the right direction. They've finally removed the worst quarterback in modern history from the roster. They are finally got their guy back. Regardless of how I feel about him, he had a very successful day. He set a franchise record for rushing yards in a game. He had one throw that was one that very few, maybe one other guy in the league can actually connect on.
Is it the same guy that connected on that kind of throw yesterday?
No, he was on
No, he had a bye.
Okay.
But it was just a day. Thank you. It was just a day where, okay, like the Jaguars came for a fight. At the beginning of the day, I was rooting for a Jalen Ramsey interception, and by the end of it, I was like, "Hey, fuck you, buddy. I'm glad that it all went to hell for you." I mean, that's my emotions for the team going forward have significantly brightened after yesterday, and that was a not good team that they beat. It was the lowest game on the totem pole for announcers on CBS. It was not like
you're telling me you're not thrilled every time that Andrew Catalan gets assigned to your Andrew Catalan and Spiro Dides.
It was Spiro Dides and Adam Archuleta. It was a real show now.
Yeah, that was about one step away from calling us in to do the game.
But it was
we were seventh. Those guys were sixth.
Yeah, it just felt something felt different yesterday. It seemed like the crowd had a good time. I don't know if there's a Bills-Jaguars rivalry now. Maybe.
I mean, I guess any sort of
Do we
game
want
that
this?
you have an on-field fist fight over a contested catch. I guess there's something there.
I mean, it certainly felt like
The announcers certainly tried to hype up that playoff game that all of us want to forget about.
It was a pretty heated game all around, though.
Yeah.
Jalen
Yeah.
Ramsey calling at the sideline trash.
yeah.
You know, it was like, I think maybe that was what sparked the whole thing was his early season comments about Josh Allen and just
Sure.
they're a pretty close
I
team.
mean,
I'd say, so.
Not to try to delve too much into the psyche of Jalen Ramsey. I think he just went into that interview, tried to call out as many quarterbacks as possible so that they all just spent all the season throwing at him.
There was no way that he thought that this was going to be the end result, though.
Not a 3-8 football team
Jacksonville
getting run out of town. No,
Basically had everybody coming back, basically, minus all the wide receivers. But they thought that they had the formula, they would be able to repeat it, and it is so hard to repeat defensive performance. And when the offense has regressed just a little bit, because they were winning a lot of these games, 2013 last year, but now the offense is maybe now it's the worst in the NFL. I think
it's interesting because objectively, like if you look just on a statistical level, Bortles is basically at the same point that he was last season. He has 2 more interceptions right now than he did last season, but yardage, very similar, same amount of touchdowns. He hasn't regressed. He wasn't that great to begin with, is the argument. But everything around him, the turnovers, like you mentioned a bunch in the offseason, you can't build a defense around having a great turnover differential and expect that to be repeatable.
it's going to bite you every time.
The running game with Fournette's nagging injuries, the players around them not giving the game away to Pittsburgh last week. I mean, just everything that could go wrong for that team has gone wrong. DVOA is way down for them. I mean, they're getting torched left and right. A defense that was supposed to be the best in the NFL. Like, there's been plays where it looks like they're running 2 different sets of coverage in the secondary and getting burned for 60 yards a pop.
Yeah, I mean,
There's nothing there anymore.
Yeah, and that was the thing is like the breakdowns in the secondary that we saw them last year, and it just seemed like that was not something that happened, and that backfield, that defensive backfield was just it was just a wall. You couldn't break through it. And this year, complete opposite. They and I don't know if they don't seem to like each other all that much, right? And the Ramsey trade rumors that have been floating around for a while now, it seems more and more like it's going to have to be a reality, that they're going to have to do something.
They have to do it
to break up, and it's very, they have the most expensive defensive line in history. They got a lot of issues down there, and firing the offensive coordinator because he can't figure out how to get 7 more points out of Blake Bortles. Hey, if Lambeau doesn't miss that field goal, we could be talking about
I think
Jaguars win
I think
yesterday.
Jacksonville still wins that game if he makes that kick. I really do.
Right. So I don't know where they're at right now, but boy, oh boy, they have a lot of issues in Jacksonville.
So positives to take away from the Bills. I think we would overall agree that do we agree that it was a good defensive day? That it was a good defensive day from the moment that Leonard Fournette went out of the football game.
Well,
It wasn't
Yeah.
the same as it normally is. They gave up a lot of yards on the ground, but most of them came with Fournette in the game, and then the one long Westbrook run.
they looked much better in the second half, even with Fournette in the game. They were starting to lock it up. The end of the first half was looking pretty.
Do you think that that's not a goal line stand if Fournette's in that game? I still don't think they could stop
You're
him.
probably right.
No, it's not.
I think they were definitely playing better coming out of the second half. They had a couple good stops to start the second half.
Adjustments.
Jacksonville just went right back down the field again on them.
Well, I think there's something to say for the adjustments they made in the locker room. I think Les Frazier did a good job correcting the wrongs that they had in the first half because they didn't need to pass. They didn't need Blake Bortles. They just kept handing it off. I was like, why pass the rest of the game? Just keep giving it to this guy. He was chunking for big yards, but the second half started and they it got a lot better.
Something that you touched on there is something I would like to bring up is we talked very early in the season about that moment in the defense where the play calling was handed back to McDermott from Leslie Frazier, and we wondered if Leslie Frazier was ever going to get it back. He got it back immediately, and all of a sudden we have the number 1 yards per game defense in the NFL. It's crazy to think how quickly Leslie Frazier was able to turn that all around, and how easily he could have just been. I think in some previous regimes, I honestly think he would have been out of a job. And it's good to see that McDermott wasn't quite so quick to do that.
I think he's a pretty fair coach.
Yeah, he's a good coordinator. You know, he failed as a head man.
I'm talking about McDermott.
Oh,
Like most coaches wouldn't hand back the duties. I'm saying he's a pretty fair coach in that aspect. There was like,
There's obviously a factor of trust there.
slapped him on the wrist, took it back, and said, "Here, try again."
yeah.
Most coaches wouldn't do that.
I will always assume that the guys in the room are going to like him more than I think he's corny and phony in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that he can't coach a football team.
Kind of half the job of being a head coach.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of
putting out
misdirection.
the political bullshit.
Yeah, and it just I got reviewing the tape, which ironically enough, Jalen Ramsey said yesterday in his post-game comments. Just those sort of things are infuriating to me because I find them insulting as a fan. I think that a lot of coaches think that fans, they have access. There are a lot of dumb fans. There's also people that have a lot of access to new materials that didn't exist as a fan 20 years ago. So I just think it's insulting sometimes the way he goes about his business. That said, the players all love him. He seems to be a player's first coach. And like you said, yeah, he was willing to give Frazier, I don't even know if you want to say it's the last shot, another shot, however you want to frame it. He was willing to do it, and it has paid off in spades for the Bills.
So going back to the original defense, if you had to grade it on a letter scale, what was yesterday's defensive performance for you guys?
What's my what kind of scale do you want here?
Let's go like A to F, traditional grade school.
I was about to say he said on a letter scale.
Oh, I thought you said 1 to 10. Sorry. I failed everything in middle school.
And
I'm going to give it a 7. I would say it's about a C plus B minus. I didn't think it was a dominant performance, and I think they got kind of fortunate that the best offensive player got thrown out.
I would say probably a C minus. F for the run defense, just because they gave up so many yards on the ground, but they did what they had to do. Now Bortles isn't a great quarterback by any means, but I mean, what did they hold him to? About 125 yards?
Yeah, he did basically nothing, like 111 or something like that.
I mean, for the most part, pro quarterbacks should be putting up more yards than that in a game, and under most circumstances. And so, in that aspect, they did their job. But against the running game, I don't think they really did until Fournette was out of the game.
Just out of curiosity, what would you say is a good number that pro quarterback should strive for? Is it greater or less than 160 yards? Not any particular reason I'm asking that question. I just want to know.
We get into this a lot on the show.
We do. Because it was beat to death last season. I called Josh Allen's game Tyrod-esque in the group chat, and I don't think anyone has an argument against it.
I didn't want to bring it up.
I'm going to keep bringing it up.
It's fine. You go ahead. I don't feel like
I mean, it was definitely a very Tyrod-esque game. I mean, I think Tyrod's a little more accurate, but he would hit more of those checkdowns than Allen throws.
Now, let's not beat around the 1 point. That one throw that I know Bill already mentioned it. That throw that he made, it was absolutely incredible.
To Foster. Yeah, no,
got drilled from both sides. Yep. Absolutely perfect.
Absolutely.
That's why they drafted
him. A lot of that stat line was kind of hurt by the end of the half, where he made like 3 really great throws and good reads, and then the offensive line made had 3 terrible penalties.
What was it? He had 104
Right.
yards in the first quarter and 0 in the second quarter or something like that. And yes, you're right. There were 2 consecutive completions that were
of decent
negated
length.
because of the offensive line, which, oh boy, that offensive line.
So,
That was
Still
an
not
interestingly
good.
officiated game.
Yeah, it was.
And it's funny because Benjamin actually almost dropped his one catch.
He really tried to. Man, did he try to.
that was
That was so
that was
awkward.
a nice juggling job right there. But I mean, yeah, you've got. I think you had just a couple drops. I mean,
Yeah,
but it was just.
nobody
I'm
got
more
many
concerned-
targets. He only threw it 19 times.
I'm more concerned about the 8 completions. I'm
He's
more
still
concerned about
not
the 8 for
accurate.
19. I'm concerned about the accuracy. And I think long term that's going to be a problem because he needs to get the ball to his playmakers, and 8 for 19 is not even 50%, and that's could lead to a lot of 3 and outs.
It's
They'll put you
kind
behind
of
the
what
sticks.
you accept this to a degree when you draft Josh Allen. He was not accurate in college. He's not going to learn it overnight. You hope that he does learn it, but he's not there yet. First game coming back
First
from
game
an
in a
injury
month and a half.
against a good secondary. We can talk shit about Jacksonville forever.
very
They do
good
have a good secondary.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the good and the bad. The good is he can literally throw the ball 50 yards while getting hit from both sides. And Robert Foster, out of all people, who would have thought Robert Foster has been a breath of fresh air for this offense? He's looked fantastic for the last 2 games.
And it's nice they're taking shots. Really, these incompletions are them taking shots down to the field at the end of the quarter. So I don't hate the stats. I mean, he's 8 for 19. But we would pick apart stats in this podcast a lot. But in the passing league, you want to see your quarterback throw a lot more, at least than 2 to 20. I think that's kind of what a few of us here on the show nitpick at.
I think
I just thought everything was going to be different when we got a white guy back there, but apparently not.
Well, that's what it was. Yeah.
I say that because this would have been a game that people would have been frustrated about Tyrod Taylor, and they would be saying,
they'd be calling for Barkley right now. If it
yeah,
was Tyrod.
they would be. But they, he was hurt. They won the game.
And there's still a good number of people that are frustrated with the game.
Right.
But everyone's so excited because number 7 pick. He's a rookie. He's new. It's a new toy. People are still excited about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
They're 3-3 in the games that Josh Allen has started this season. So
He played a good game overall. Maybe it's not statistically, but he leadership wise.
he's beaten the Vikings, Titans, and Jaguars. Those are 3 playoff teams from last season that he's beaten.
And one of whom just won in primetime last
Yeah.
night, so they're no
One
scrub.
thing you can say is he didn't turn the ball over yesterday.
Which is important.
He looked
Very
more
important.
confident than I thought he looked in the past.
He's a confident player. I disagree. I think he's been confident basically all season. I haven't seen any point in the year where I was like, well, this guy's lacking for confidence, because as bad as he played in that first full game against the Chargers, he looked okay in the second half. I just think that there's a lot of hyperbole about this guy. Now, he is younger, and there's hope that you can mold him into something, whereas the quarterbacking situation last year was a guy who was a completed product and probably not able to be anything more than that. So you're banking that this roof will continue to rise, and eventually Josh Allen will become something more than what he is today. There are a lot of people that fear that this is what he will always be, that he may be a new Blake Bortles, and I get that. I do think that his ceiling is potentially... The mobility has surprised me. I'll say that. And if he has this mobility and he can get to somewhere between 55 and 60%, I will say he has the capability of maybe being a Cam Newton. Is that a fair comparison? Is that a good ceiling for this guy, given the mobility and the accuracy and everything that we're seeing? He's coming from a lower spot, obviously, than what Newton was. But maybe he can be a poor man's, or even in a comparable Cam Newton if he's a finished product. And
That would be very, very high end of ceiling for me. I think Cam's just a different kind of athlete than anyone else who's ever played the position, just in how he runs the ball, how physically he runs the ball. I think
he's a
your ceiling
different runner. He's a different runner, but he ran the ball 13 times yesterday.
Statistically, yes. But those also weren't designed quarterback runs. No one's scheming Josh Allen to run the ball 13 times a game.
Because
He's
they
just
see
taking
a
off because the
dorky white
offensive
guy
line is
back there.
terrible.
Like, I do think that teams are not scheming properly for his athleticism in the rushing game. I do think that that's a real thing.
I was going to say, I still like to see him had a good O-line. Because one of the analysts said that he played a good game for rookie quarterback. And you really look at the stats, they only dropped back 19 times. But really, he ran 13 times, so it's 32 dropbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think a couple of those are probably partially
maybe he's pulling
designed.
the
But...
ball down too early and running because he's seeing pressure and panicking because that O-line is fucking
Oh, I 100%
shit.
understand that.
Yeah, you can safely assume, even if there were a few designed quarterback runs in there, you can safely assume that there were a minimum 26, 27 dropbacks
Those are all
designed to
passing
pass.
plays. Those are maybe one of them to the red zone.
Maybe
It was
But
30 dropbacks easy.
Oh, yeah.
19
Yeah.
passes.
And once he feels more confident behind a decent O-line and throws more and stops running so much when he feels pressure, then maybe we'll see the stats.
But that
everyone
bad
wants to see.
offensive line is why I really don't want him in right now. I don't want to take a chance that he re-injures the elbow or comes up injured again, a different injury that stunts his development, and who knows how much time he loses.
Did you see that one? I think it's the end of the third quarter. Either end of the third quarter or breaking into the fourth when was that red zone scamper and his leg got tied up underneath him.
Yep.
That looked pretty bad. He could have been out for another year after that one.
But you also just can't not play him because the offensive
Risk
line's probably going to be shit for about 2 more years.
I mean, you can't have a brand new toy and not play it because you're afraid he's going to get broken.
Just put some new batteries in it and put it back out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's better. I think it's better. I was on that train too, Mike, with you for a long time. But now it's like I'm happy he's out there getting the reps.
I mean, at this point, Bills football is unwatchable
Then we're doing this again next year
without him.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more casual interest, I think. And just, like I said, this isn't happening if Matt Barkley is the quarterback. Because I don't, like, if Josh Allen is the future, whether you agree with it or not, you got to play him as soon as he's ready to get out there. Because now at this point, you don't have, Matt Barkley's not really the safety net. Like, I think the Jets kind of just had everything.
The Jets were just terrible.
Had as bad a game as a team as you could possibly have. And I don't think that Matt Barkley offers the dimensions. I do think that maybe the Jaguars defense struggled because there were so many plays where the structure of the play broke down, right? So now you have to still have gap integrity and you still have to be trying to defend your man, and then all of a sudden the quarterback is, like we said, I don't remember what
That's
the
a lack
count
of
is.
defensive discipline then.
And I think the Jaguars have shown that they're a pretty undisciplined team. So maybe and I think teams have taken advantage of that this season. Whether 13 rushes, I don't know. Were there 4 designed runs in that? I don't remember off the top of my head. They were obviously trying to establish some kind of running game because 17 rushes for LaShawn McCoy, he wasn't really a factor at all in the passing game. They were trying to run the ball, it seemed like, a lot and trying to stay ahead of the magic number on each possession with the running game in the early downs. They did not want Josh Allen throwing the ball very much. I think that's obvious. And they were able to work it. What's up?
He had 30 dropbacks. That's a lot of throws.
30 dropback. Well, he had 19. Well, I see what you're saying. 30 dropbacks total. Okay, so
Those are passing plays. He
so
ran
2 designed runs. I'm just saying the guy's athleticism, I think, surprised a lot of guys, especially
How at this point is it
defense,
surprising?
because
Well,
it's
it was
the
surprised
Jaguars.
coming out of college.
Because he's trash, you're trash,
ta-
he's trash, he's
I'm
trash.
talking-
It's not like the Jaguars were
I mean, I can
respecting the Bills' offense.
I mean, I can understand that back in the Minnesota game where they didn't know what they were going to get from him, but at this point, you have to know his athleticism at least by that one play,
Well,
jumping over
I
the
think they
linebacker.
didn't expect him to actually come out freshman injury and aggressively play like that. And
I don't-
I respect that he went out there and played like he did, honestly.
I think Dable called a really good game yesterday.
I like
As
that-
poor as these stats are, I actually like the
love
offensive
how they've
flow.
used Foster and McKenzie.
I was about to say, I love how they've been using McKenzie. Like, they actually got a guy and are using him. He could be considered a weapon because he's a role player. He's fast.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
using
he's
him-
one of those
and
guys
using
who's
the right
gonna-
way.
Yeah,
You know?
he's going to be that Tavon Austin, Cordero Patterson kind of role guy. You're going to line him up in the backfield sometimes. He's going to take some end arounds. He's going to play slot receiver. He's got good hands. But Dable has shown that he's able to use guys with speed, and even though he's not being handed world talent speed players, he has made the most of them. And I mean, Foster has looked fantastic since getting called up,
nice
and
to-
McKenzie's looked great since joining the team.
Yeah, since they identified what could be weapon and are using him as such. It's nice to see. You haven't seen that much around here in a while.
Nope.
Still don't like that as soon as Allen comes back in, Zay Jones disappears. It's my only concern about the receiving core.
1 target, nothing. Yeah,
and he wasn't
it's
being
not
covered
great.
by no Ramsey over on him or anything. So.
Now, nobody got more than 3. Was it
true.
Foster, Kroom, McKenzie, and Thompson? Thompson actually didn't catch any of his targets. The other 3
welcome back to Buffalo,
caught
Mr. 100.
2 of their 3. It was brighter days hopefully for the passing offense. Still want to see Allen get over 200 yards in a game this season. That'd be nice. There are going to be plenty of opportunities coming up though, because 4 of these last 5 games, 2 against the Dolphins, 1 against the Jets, 1 against the Lions. Not very good teams, to say the least. I mean, they had
nicely.
the
very
Lions
hard
just lost to
beginning.
Chase Daniels.
They had a very hard beginning to the season, and an incredibly soft landing here in the final 5.
We're officially in. The Bills are in the hunt season.
They're not in the hunt.
I mean, technically,
They had the
they're 2
Browns,
games
and
out.
the Browns are 4-6-1, and they were on the CBS graphic yesterday.
They're like, what was it, 2 games out?
But they have to finish ahead of both Los Angeles
they have to
and
win out.
Baltimore.
To start the year, I had them winning out the last 8 games in our first podcast.
Not Los Angeles and Baltimore.
You have to finish ahead of at least one of them.
6 and 10, I think.
You can't finish with the same record
one
as
of them,
either of
yeah,
them.
yeah,
where I settled in at. I can't remember for certain, but I think that was basically.
I think I had them going 1-7 to start the season. And
Yeah,
then,
it was
I had them
not
going-
looking like they were going to be able to do it, but it was bad. But now it's good. So we'll see what they do next week at Miami.
Always a tough game for the Bills, no matter what.
Yeah, weird game. Always. God, I don't know. They're probably 3-5 this decade down there, if I'm doing quick math.
I feel like we split with Miami every season, no matter how good either of the
Yeah,
teams
it
are.
doesn't really matter.
It seems like each team usually wins the home game.
Yeah.
So we'll see what comes of that. The Dolphins are fading fast in the AFC playoff picture. But we will discuss that all next week, as well as the Sabres. We'll see what they're up to. Hopefully continuing their winning ways as we flip the calendar over to December. And then you can have Friendsmas, which is the Friends version of Christmas. I'm looking forward
I'm
to
having
about
Friendica.
Friendica, sure.
Starting
Everybody's
next weekend.
Yes, bright and early. For Friendvent,
Sure. As long as it involves lighting people on fire.
basically.
We will discuss all this and all that holiday merriment that is approaching us in the coming weeks. But we thank you for tuning into the 716 Sports Podcast here in the last week in November. This is the weirdest week ever because we have a full week of November after Thanksgiving. Calendars, what's up with that? Don't really understand it. Don't understand how the dates move around. Just kind of seems random to me, but what do I know?
I mean, what's so hard about the 4th Thursday in November?
I would give it a C+. So we will talk to you guys next week.
Execution is bad, isn't it?
It is. I don't understand execution. I'm not Bret Hart out there. Facebook, still there.
Is it?
Yep.
Twitter, still there.
Last we checked.
Hopefully.
It's really just Facebook and Twitter. Let's not
Follow
kid
us on
ourselves.
Yelp.
Yep. And you can
Give
figure
us
out
that
where
4-star rating.
If you follow us on Yelp, you can figure out Justin's physical address, and that's pretty cool. Be sure to check that out. It's listed, I believe, under 716 Sports Podcast in Bistro here in Tonawanda. So pretty neat there. But that should just about wrap it up for us. So we will bid you adieu, as the French say.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.